breaking news on 2 News.
Thanks for joining us here on 2 News at 4 on a Monday. We are following 2 breaking stories right now. On one side of your screen, there it is right there. That is video inside an Idaho courtroom where the preliminary hearing for Chad Daybell is still going on. It's been going on for quite some time. There has been disturbing new details that have been released that we've been learning in the deaths of Lori's children, J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan. And then on the right side, we are awaiting a news conference from Salt Lake City Police Chief Mike Brown and Salt Lake City Mayor Erin Mendenhall. They are expected to announce updates to several police policies. We do now want to turn our attention to Salt Lake City Mayor Erin Mendenhall, who has just stepped up to the podium where several police policies are expected to be announced. Several changes to police policies. Let's go ahead and listen in to Mayor Erin Mendenhall.
These have been a difficult couple of months for our city, but nothing truly compared to the lifetime of anxiety, concern, and legitimate fear that people of color in our community and across this country live with every day.
That's a good thing, Jim. Thank you. This comes just hours after Salt Lake City Mayor Erin Mendenhall announced 7 new police reforms, including changes to policies surrounding the use of force, body cameras, and more. Chief Brown said he thinks his officers are on board with the changes.
From officers on the street. Sometimes they come through our training, best practices taught around the country. Other times they come from the community we serve.
Tonight's announcement drawing praise from many voices in Utah who have worked on police reform for years now. Jeremy Harris went to get that side of the story today, and he got an earful. Jeremy, what can you tell us?
Well, you know, Mark, these are department policies, not necessarily a change in the law, but it's significant because that's what determines what officers do out in the field. Tonight, we wanted to know how some of the families of people killed by police in Utah and activists are feeling about the changes.
You work so hard for this day, and it's here today.
The founder of Black Lives Matter Utah, Lex Scott, says today's announced police reforms in Salt Lake City are the result of years of work.
It's a historic day.
Scott has spent 3 years working with Salt Lake City Police on reform.
And it feels like we're heard. It feels like this will save lives.
What happened here today was step number 1.
Nathan Morris represents the family of Bernardo Palacios Carbajal, who was killed by Salt Lake City Police in May.
They indicated they are committed to this change, and we appreciate the changes that were made.
Palacios is one of many faces on this mural of people killed by police in Utah.
It's a small part of saying, we're hearing you.
Gina Thane's nephew's face is here too. She says the Salt Lake City Police of today is not the same department she met in 2014 when Dylan Taylor was killed.
I feel some empathy from this department, that they're trying to make some change.
Thane was joined at Salt Lake City Police tonight by family members of James Barker and Bobby Duckworth.
That's just means so much to me.
Both killed by police.
His family, they're happy that this is all happening.
While today is a victory, Scott and other families say they want to see what Salt Lake City is doing expand across the state and country.
People's lives will be saved by what Mayor Mendenhall did today.
Now, while they are favorable of these new policies, the police union, the Utah Fraternal Order of Police, they issued a statement tonight and they slammed these policies. They're not happy with it at all. That statement says, in part, we look forward to changes to this hasty policy, ones that will allow officers to operate safely without worry that their lives are being sacrificed for political ends. We've posted the FOP statement in its entirety up on KUTV.com. Also important to note, we have not received a response to these policy changes from the Salt Lake City Police Association, which is the one that negotiates for officers here in the city. Hopefully we'll hear something from them perhaps tomorrow about their take on this. Reporting live in Salt Lake City, Jeremy Harris, 2 News.
Yeah, Jeremy, and again, you can read the protocol and policy changes. We put them on our website. We have them all there for you at KUTV.com. The Salt Lake City Police Association today striking back at the mayor's police reforms in Salt Lake City. They believe officers will vote with their feet and leave the department. In the last hour, Salt Lake Police confirmed they've had officers leave since the protest in May. Kyle Harvey heard the union's concerns and reached out to the mayor for some answers today.
You're not protecting the law-abiding citizen, you're protecting the criminals.
At the root, Police Union President Stephen Winter says the mayor should leave lawmaking to lawmakers.
But she's now becoming a legislator. She's making law in reference to policies.
Of the mayor's 3 areas of focus with her proposed reforms, the union is most concerned with rules for searches and use of force, specifically de-escalation.
And we do that every single day on almost every single incident, but there's circumstances where we cannot.
Too often, Winters says, people they encounter after a 911 call are high, drunk, or off meds.
It's very, very difficult to negotiate with somebody who is not rational.
He says non-lethal force can be life-saving for everyone in some instances.
By putting this policy out, that really hamstrings the officers' efforts to try to resolve the problem.
I have no doubt in my mind that law enforcement officers will rise to the level of the standard that we give to them. Some may like it, some may not like it.
Salt Lake DA Sim Gill likes the mayor's reforms, but he notes they are aimed at curbing use of force before it happens. In his world, after it happens, he's still playing by the same state rule book.
But my analysis, until there's a statutory change, will follow the law that as currently exists.
In Salt Lake, Kyle Harvey, 2 News.
Kyle tells us he did reach out to the mayor, Mayor Mendenhall, today to ask about some of the union's concerns and was told that she was not available today. Police reform across the country and here in Utah may be having some unwanted consequences. Today, one leader in Utah law enforcement tells 2 News that departments across the state are struggling to keep good officers. He told Kyle Harvey those reforms may remove bad cops, but also could remove a lot of good ones.
This isn't about just one city or one county. It's about multiple agencies and cities across the state.
Tom Ross is the president of the Utah Chiefs of Police Association. He says every police controversy makes waves that extend far beyond one city.
I'm confident that every police chief is having conversations with officers about the very issue of, is this the career for me? Should I stay in?
Some are leaving the profession, he says, over safety concerns.
At times, officers feel like they won't know when they can or can't use force, which may put their lives at risk.
Some changes will root out cops that shouldn't be cops, but
it's the ones that are doing a great job, that are day in and day out exactly the officer showing up on the doorstep that you want to see, that are having the same questions. That's the scary part for me.
Ross says police officers know the job may cost them their life, but the loss of their good name may be too high a price.
I think that's harder for officers to reckon with than their own lives.
To be clear, Ross says some police criticism is earned.
To those that have not had those kinds of experiences with law enforcement, I'm sorry.
He remains hopeful good changes can happen that don't cause good people to give up on policing.
I think reasonable people will do the right things and help us make the right changes, and law enforcement will be able to see it as a positive.
In Bountiful, Kyle Harvey, 2 News.
Well, tonight we're hearing exclusively from one of the Salt Lake City police officers injured during that May 30th protest in downtown Salt Lake City. His name is Anthony. He asked, and we agreed not to share his last name for his protection. He sat down with reporter Kyle Harvey today to talk about that day and what he says the city did wrong.
Well, namely, he says the city waited and waited and waited to do anything, and that didn't sit well with him.
I took a water valve cover, a cast iron water valve cover to the leg, and an object to the head.
Anthony showed up to the protests May 30th, a year and a half into his police career, a job he deeply enjoyed.
Loved it. Loved every minute of it.
40 years old, he had a career in the railroad business before becoming a cop. His opinion of policing, at least in Salt Lake, changed that afternoon.
Property destroyed and livelihoods damaged while we was on the sidelines watching for way too long, in my opinion.
For hours, it was chaos, widespread vandalism, even a police car set on fire. Anthony tells me police orders were to let people vent, step in only as a last resort.
Until there was actual life threatened, that's how I understood it.
It's a decision he still doesn't understand.
So it's not my choice to decide what laws I get to say don't get broke and which ones we're going to let slide. We get hamstringed and not allowed to do our job a lot of the times by upper administration.
Anthony says the leaders that did show up that day wore different uniforms.
Not having a whole lot of support from our upper leadership, yet looking around and seeing leaders from other agencies out there on the front lines with us, that says a lot.
Eventually, Anthony left the scene in an armored truck after that blow to the head, diagnosed at the hospital as a concussion. Anthony did go back to work, but he took a medical leave and ultimately resigned, walking away from his dream job just 9 days ago. He says the protests are not the reason he quit. Coming up at 6 o'clock, why did he quit? Downtown, Kyle Harvey, 2 News.
Tonight, a former officer injured in those May 30 protests is speaking about his decision to leave the police department. He told Kyle Harvey the protests were not the reason he left.
He doesn't have a problem with the protests at all. His issue is with the city's response to them. He makes some strong claims about the police chief and the mayor, both of which declined my offer to go on camera.
When you don't have no support from your leadership, from your city leadership, and from the city in general, good officers get that feeling, well, okay, why are we doing this?
Anthony asked himself that question and couldn't come up with a good answer, resigning his position with Salt Lake City Police last week.
It was one of the hardest decisions of my life.
Anthony was taken to the hospital for a concussion and a leg injury after the May 30 protest. He was one of many officers hurt. But he says the worst blow he took that weekend came from the mayor in her Zoom address to the city on Sunday.
If you were downtown yesterday and you believe that there were any incidents of inappropriate use of force, I ask that you file a complaint.
Well, you know, that's a swift kick in your gut.
I asked about Chief Brown. Did Anthony hear from him?
Didn't hear nothing from him for, days. In fact, it took I wrote him an email saying, hey, just wanted to let you, see if you knew you had injured officers out there, in hopes that they were getting more support than me and my family was.
Anthony returned to work, but ultimately took a medical leave, watching protest after protest.
More waiting in the wind and watching from the sidelines. I didn't sign up to protect and serve to watch people break the law. I can't swallow that.
He says not everyone will love officers, even the good ones, but if they don't have trust and respect from their employer,
you feel like you're out there on an island fighting a battle by yourself.
Utah's Chiefs of Police Association told me yesterday that Anthony is not an anomaly. This is happening in cities all across Utah. Chief Brown sent me a statement that says, in part, it's always sad to lose employees and that their loss has a big impact. Downtown, Kyle Harvey, 2 News.
New today at 5, the union that represents Salt Lake City police officers considering a vote of no confidence against Chief Mike Brown. A story you'll only see on 2 News today. Reporter Kyle Harvey today confirming that a preliminary vote was actually taken. Kyle, walk us through this.
Well, the union would not agree to an on-camera interview about this today, but they did confirm information I got from an unnamed source that nearly 200 of its members did cast a ballot online. The ballot says the vote is not about whether Mike Brown is a good guy, rather whether you are confident in his recent actions as leader. We see a tally, 167 with no confidence, 17 with confidence. But there's a catch. This ballot was supposed to be live for 48 hours. It was only up for 24. So a couple hundred people haven't cast a vote yet. Union President Stephen Winters indicated they intend to do another ballot soon to cement the members' position.
The chief has heard through unofficial sources that a vote did take place, but nothing formal has been presented to the chief.
I was told Chief Brown was not available to speak today, so I interviewed Sergeant Brandon Shearer, who's not a union member. Are there people in the department who support the chief?
I can't speak on the department's behalf on that question. I can speak for myself. I know that the chief does have support from officers and sergeants and multiple people in the department. My personal opinion is I think they're officers just frustrated with the general things happening in the city.
The way Salt Lake City is set up, Mayor Aaron Mendenhall decides how long Chief Brown is in charge. So what effect does such a union vote have on the department?
I think it could be a way to open dialogue between the chief and the association about ways that the administration can improve and begin the conversation.
Now, I did reach out to Mayor Mendenhall today. I was told that she was not available for an interview, but she did send me a lengthy statement that I'm going to put on our website, KUTV.com. She is very blunt. She said she supports Chief Brown and that union leadership has failed its members. She's open to collaboration if they, quote, will stop clinging to the past. Now, coming up in an hour, did talk to a law enforcement consultant. what's next here and what everyone involved should be doing in this next week. We're now live downtown. Kyle Harvey, 2 News.
Okay, Kyle, thanks. A no confidence vote is a way for a union to pressure political leaders for change. The National Executive Institute Associates says unions have found this vote to be very popular and a powerful and effective tool for change. 3 main things they use this type of vote for: wage negotiation, policy and decision making, and of course the removal of the police chief. Now, the results do not mean the chief would be removed. It's more of a publicized suggestion, or you might want to call it a nudge to city leaders, that the department does not believe in its leader. It's been more than 25 years since a union moved forward with a no confidence vote against a police chief in Salt Lake City. Take you back to 1994. The vote came against then Chief Ruben Ortega. According to an article published at the time by the Deseret News, union leaders blamed Ortega for a drop in department morale. Ortega withstood the no confidence vote and left the department after Mayor Rocky Anderson took office in 2000. Tonight, a story you'll only see here on 2 News. Amidst protests for police reform across the country and here in Utah as well, the union representing the Salt Lake City Police Department is considering a vote of no confidence against its police chief. The union did not agree to an on-camera interview today to talk about the vote, but a source confirmed that nearly 200 union members did cast a ballot in a preliminary vote. That vote, 167 with no confidence and 17 with confidence. We spoke with Sergeant Brandon Shearer with the Salt Lake City Police. He's not a union member, but he says he thinks some officers are frustrated with some of the things that are happening in the city.
I think it could be a way to open dialogue between the chief and the association about ways that the administration can improve and begin the conversation.
There is one catch to this vote. This ballot was supposed to be live and it was supposed to last for 48 hours, but it was only up for 24 hours, so a couple hundred people didn't really get a chance to cast a vote. A law enforcement expert says the Salt Lake mayor, police chief, and police union do have some work to do to settle some of these growing conflicts. Kyle Harvey has more on what a vote of no confidence really means tonight. Kyle?
Well, for things to really begin to start happening, the union leadership would need to go and present the results of their ballot, as well as really the members' intent, directly to the police chief as well as the city mayor. I'm told that is not something that has happened yet. And when speaking with Chris Bertram, he is a retired deputy chief of police and a law enforcement consultant. He says this is really a symbolic gesture. In other places where collective bargaining happens, a union vote like this would be very, very difficult for a police chief to overcome. But here, it's a bit of a different story. The union would need to convince the mayor to make a change, and she has already indicated that she supports Chief Brown. Now, Bertram says the union actually tried this with a different mayor in the 1990s, and it didn't work. The chief did not go anywhere. He said it really comes down to whatever the local politics of the day are. Now, he said what he thinks what should happen is that the union should get very specific about the grievances that it has, and then the mayor and the police chief ought to make a good faith effort to repair the relationship.
The chief and his administration go back into discussions with the union to see if they could remedy what's been asked. Is it reasonable? Are they asking for something that just can't happen? Are they asking for things that we can come back and talk about?
Now again, that preliminary vote, 167 to 17 against the police chief. That is with a bit less than half of the union membership casting a vote. I'm told the union will be scheduling another vote very soon. Downtown, Kyle Harvey, 2 News.